We've got folks who are fighting planning and development, the Detroit Land Bank, the mayor's office, Section 8 housing folks. Every which way we can come at this housing issue, there have been ways that they've been blocking people from keeping their homes, tossing them out, and turning the housing over to private groups in the end. So what we've been trying to do is figure out how are we going to hold on to housing in the city for people to live in, low-income people in particular. Because over the years, the federal government has been changing the way that they even approach how they're going to help making sure that low-income people have a place to live. You don't see the big high-rises anymore that they used to have where people could go and live there low-income. They just tore down Brewster Douglas, as we know, right over here by the 75. And instead, what they're supposed to be doing is having the cities build this mixed-income housing. So what you end up having is people with middle incomes, working incomes, and only 30% of those properties left for people who are low income. There are not enough units in this house. And on top of this, we know the devastation that's happened here with the economy and how people have not been able to keep up with taxes, the predatory loans, the subprime loans, all of these factors that have contributed to people being forced out of their homes. And so what happens is we've had real estate all over the city where people have been pushed out of their homes and the city not doing anything to help people get into the homes. The programs that they've been putting forward on us in the last couple of years at least have been putting homes on auction, right? You can get a home through the Detroit Land Bank if you've got a minimum of $1,000 on your credit card. Otherwise, don't even come at them. That's how this is going to work. You can't do it there. You can go over to the Wayne County Treasurer's office and you can bid on a home. Used to be you could start at $500. Now that's even up to, what is it, $2,000?
$2,000.
And so the city has declared basically war on anyone who cannot pay their bills or pay any of their taxes related to housing. And they've got no qualms with saying we're going to be putting people out. But there's no contingency plans where anyone can go because, again, there's no low-income affordable housing in the city. Thousands of families have had to take it upon themselves to find a place to live. And you know what that means. You go and you find yourself a house. And in a lot of times, those houses are owned by people who have nothing to do with Michigan. Live out of state, live out of the country. We know that China has been coming to Detroit looking for major investments in real estate because it's dirt cheap. And so you've got people in Europe, in other parts of the world, that are buying up boatloads of property online because they can. But meanwhile, there are no plans here in the city or with the state to allow people to figure out how they can retain their homes. The federal government has been no help in this either, and in fact has just compounded the problem with the way that they've been complicit in this. So what we've been doing, at least through Michigan Law for Rights and the Housing is the Human Rights Coalition, is we've been forcing this question that the city has responsibility to do something to defend the rights of low-income people to have a place to live. And with having thousands of homes all over the city that have not been occupied, and they're just sitting there, and we know the whole story. They get stripped, they get torn apart, and all of that stuff before someone can actually get a chance to take ownership of that home. We are demanding that the city give us 600 homes to start with, and we're looking for them in clusters as well. And with the homes, we want the HUD dollars that also come to the city. The city gets millions of dollars every year from HUD. We want those dollars tied to the homes, clear titles to help low-income people get into these homes. And this is what we're declaring as a first step. And the city has the responsibility to provide this kind of housing, but for them, this is now about going to the highest bidder. And so this is one of the specific proposals we have. In fact, we've got hard copies of it here. And the mayor has had this since May. They've not done anything. They've even refused to meet on us further, even though we hear that they think it's a good idea. So right now, with the auctions that are currently in place too with Wayne County, there's this new effort to bundle homes. So that because the city, the county, and the state are believing they're not getting enough homes off of the roll and getting enough people to individually buy them, they've decided you can actually get more bang for the buck if you bundle them together and have investors buy multiple houses, multiple plots of land. And so again, what we're looking at is trying to figure out how we can actually have a plan that's specific to the needs of low-income folks in this city. And I know that there's other people in here who are working on housing, and I want to see if they will actually take a next step on this.
Do you have a question? So, Sylvia, this is very interesting to me, obviously. Is it directly linked with they're going to be homeless, and there's no plan, there's nowhere for them to go because there's no affordable housing with water for them. So is this plan linked with those people who are going to be and are already forced out of their homes?
This plan is for people who have already been forced out of homes. And a lot of people who have lost their homes, those have been tied to liens that have been placed on the home itself. And so when you haven't been able to keep up with your water bill, if you're a homeowner, they will tie that bill over to your house lien, which now means you just have a bigger property bill. And people are not able to keep up with that. And while there has been federal assistance that's come to Michigan through the Step Forward program, it was supposed to be kind of like a life jacket out to the different states as a way to help homeowners be able to get some relief over 5 years. Thousands of people are not able to fill out the basic application. It's too difficult and it takes 4 to 6 months to process. And which means you've also got to have computer literacy skills because you've got to upload everything and go dig out bank records and all kinds of records about what is it that got you into this economic circumstances you're in that you can't defend your home. And so that's, again, only going to be limited for a certain number of people.
Okay, Ms. Helen Moore and Reverend, if you go up to the podium, we've got Reverend going to speak a little bit about housing and water as well. Go ahead. Helen, go ahead.
I think you ought to tell the people what we discussed at the meeting, how many houses and buildings have running water for years and how much water is lost. I think that's important that they hear that, okay? And the city does nothing about it.
Okay, and I forgot this young man. Sir, I'm sorry, I forgot you. What was your question, sir?
My name is Mr. Illicene, and I would like to know if something is being done to assist colonial peoples who are acted upon by the United Nations Declaration on the granting of independence to colonial peoples and who have transferred all power. The transfer of power includes our right to an adequate standard of living. Housing is part of an adequate standard of living, as is water. But not only do we not have an opportunity to redress our issues, but in May of last year, I contacted the Special Rapporteur on both water and housing. In May last year, I sent communications to the city. I have sent several communications, and I have been trying just to get a response. Your organization, when you send it to OCHR, to the appropriate rapporteur, they do not answer. They do not answer. No one. I have sent to you. I have sent to Ms. Leilani. I have asked for the assistance of the international community for the enforcement of customary international law, of humanitarian law with the United States and for universal human rights obligations. All of them are being violated because the United States of America is not a government. It is a corporation that continues to subject these people, all of these people, to alien subjugation, domination, and exploitation. And further, it does not give us the right to self-determination. And the law states quite clearly that all people have a right to self-determination. And by virtue of that right, they freely determine their political status and freely pursue their economic, social, and cultural development. But we are not given that opportunity. And the international community that is supposed to protect us acts lackadaisically, if at all. What can be done to ensure that complaints that are sent by the mechanism that is stated on the website for the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, that even a response is given? No response is given. We are just here. I have complaints dated August 7th. No one has answered. I have a complaint 3 weeks later asking why no one has responded. No one answered. And so whether I have done so by email or by written mail, there is no response from the international community. How do we get a response? Do we have recourse? Do we have remedy? Or is this just another Floyd?
Sir, we just had a quick discussion. We're going to take your complaint today. Okay?
They
are here.
have not received your complaint yet. If you have filed it on August 7th, if you have it with you...
I have it on my computer, ma'am. I don't have a hard copy.
But we'll make certain that we give you the right card, so we'll take that today.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Reverend Pinckney.
All right. Reverend Pinckney from Benton Harbor, Michigan. The struggle that has taken place in recent years in Benton Harbor is a case in point.
Can't hear you.
The struggle that has taken place in recent years in Benton Harbor is a case in point. One that holds a number of lessons for American people. The fight in Benton Harbor is a war over whether America will have prosperity and democracy or live in poverty under the heels of the open corporate rule. In Benton Harbor, Michigan, the water problem started there. They started cutting off people's water, condemning their home, and taking their children. Anytime that you do not have water, which is a human right, they take your children. They condemn your house, and then you have the corporations coming in, taking over your home.
Take it over.
Come on. What we have done, we have allowed these people to come in and misuse us. The United Nations can help us by condemning the action of this government. Until we condemn them, knowing what they're doing is wrong, we're never going to get any satisfaction. We have to change the way we do business. When they used to cut off people's water in our community, we would go out and cut it back on. We showed them what we can do, because it's more important for them to know that there are solutions to this problem, and we need them. You have to condemn this government. If you don't do it, all you're doing is spinning your wheel. This is a class war.
That's right.
This is a class war. And they're showing us what they can do. They had one young man talk about how they put members against members. That's another one of their tools that they use. They use that tool against us to make us fight against each other. That way they don't have to do any fighting. Right. So we're fighting against each other while they're doing what they're supposed to do. Keep us fighting. We got a problem here. A major problem. We got housing. We got water. We got our pension problem. We got a government problem. And we got a democracy problem. So what are we going to do? We can't walk around here and expect the United Nations to come in and help us when we can help ourselves. We have to learn to fight back. That's the weapon that we have to use against these people. Until we're able to do that, we're going to continue to spin our wheels and do nothing. It's time. Don't wait till something happens to you and want to fight. It's too late. You need to start fighting today. If my water gets cut off, you should be mad. You should be mad enough to go out there and fight for it. They're here, but they can't do nothing unless we do something. So it's time that we fight back. I'm going to say this. Nobody is going to give you freedom. Nobody is going to give you justice. Nobody is going to give you equality unless you're able to take it.
That's right.
It's time for a revolution.
For Marilyn and Ted to come to the podium, but quickly, Miko, say something to our rapporteurs about the violence that happens when people get ready to go pay water bills. Quickly.
Yes, my name is Miko Williams. I'm the Chief Coordinator of the Detroit Water Brigade. We are a organization that provides rapid relief to people that have had their water shut off in the city of Detroit. And there was earlier talk about tanks being at the first water affordability fair when there was an opportunity for people to come in and settle situations and pay their bills. The problem was that the water department said that there were threats of a blockade against the payment centers. That was not true at all. When we first set up on the first water affordability fair, this was August 1st, 2014, they have had tanks, men in suits, Tiger unit, people on motorcycles, men on horses, and there were about 60 people in the line who were elderly, and they were intimidated by all of the police presence. When you first go into the water department, you have to go through a metal detector, a line screening. Then you have to go through these double doors that are that let you in one person at a time to be monitored if you have to walk through metal detectors. Then when you first get in the water department, you know, you have customer service representatives who were actually some of the mayor's people that would try to, you know, talk to you, but they were talking to you in an attitude-ish way, you know, that did not make you feel welcome and comfortable. At the next water affordability fair that we had at Cobo, there was 4,000 people who stood in a very long line. None of them were engaged. They stood out there, no water, no adequate seating, and when they got into the doors, they had to walk through metal detectors. Women had to submit their purses to be checked, and a whole litany of other things. So when you do come to try to address your water bill, the city has not been given any chances to appeal your situation, to talk about what's been going on, and when you do, it's like a you know, you just walk in, a whole thing of intimidation. We're not that type of people here. We are people that are unique, we're down to earth, and we wouldn't hurt a fly, you know. Detroit is not a city like Somalia. This is not a third world country. We are actual human people, and the water department has just treated us with the ultimate disrespect. And plus, I would say to the housing, the way that they're doing this land banks, and they're giving investors and millionaires deals that normal people can't even get on their lots, on their own land. I was one of the victims of trying to buy my house, my grandmother's house, and I was not able to have that a chance. But yet it was put on the Detroit Land Bank, which is a land bank that confiscates houses. Even if your house is went into foreclosure, you can do anything you can to try to save your house, and you're not given the same opportunity as they would give one of the investors and millionaires that you can get land for $1 or possibly free. So there's just a violation all over the place.
We have 45 minutes left. Michigan Legal Services United Housing Coalition is at the podium now. Housing issues, please.
Yes, hi. My name is Seth Phillips. I'm the director of the Housing Coalition, and we've engaged in work around tax foreclosure prevention now for the last 12 years with Michigan Legal Services. I just want to highlight the crisis in tax foreclosure. In the next 12 months, there is the potential for 80,000 homes in Detroit being lost to tax foreclosure. And probably half to a little more than that are pretty assuredly occupied. There's no way we can tell for sure exactly what is or isn't, but those are the raw numbers. When we first got involved in this 12 years ago, Detroit was in a crisis, and the City Council President, Maureen, asked the two of us and a few others to see what we could do about trying to resolve it. That crisis in January of 2003, I believe it was that we had 1,600 homes, 1,600 occupied homes in tax foreclosure. Those were saved that year through a lot of work, hard work by a lot of people. This year, next week, there will be 16,000 homes offered for auction in the city of Detroit from the 21st of October to the 28th. There's also another 20,000 roughly that could be lost by the end of December through a separate foreclosure process through the reversion process that Wayne County Treasurer has implemented. Next year, there are 62,000 parcels representing about 45,000 homes or so that are in jeopardy. That is higher than any place else in the entire country. A few years ago, when there were 40,000 foreclosures filed in Wayne County, that was 10 times the next highest county, which was Cuyahoga in Ohio, according to the Wayne County Treasurer. So this next year, 62,000 just in the city of Detroit, 75,000 in Wayne County. So there's a devastation that is unimaginable that could happen in the next 12 months alone, on top of everything that we've already dealt with over the last several years. A lot of what we've dealt with has been very predictable. Very predictable when you start adding water bills in 2006 and 2007, that 3 years later when you go to foreclosures would escalate by more than double. Water bills are a huge, huge problem with tax foreclosure. On top of the fact that there's 18% interest everybody's paying, like credit card debt, not only on the water bills then, but on the taxes. A few concrete steps that could be taken if you're meeting with the mayor or whoever locally that has the authority and ability to do it. This mayor has already admitted that the assessments are wrong. One of the primary problems for people being in foreclosure is not just poverty, but the assessments are 2 and 3 and 4 times what they should be. We've seen people that have, investors have bought property for $500 to $1,000, sold it for $20,000 to folks, and the poor homeowner that got stuck with that discovers when he does that he's got an $80,000 loan. And that's what it's being assessed at by the city of Detroit. And that's not an uncommon situation. So we're over-assessing folks in addition to the poverty issue. There's a state law which says that local communities can have what's called a poverty tax exemption. To its credit, Detroit has one of the better ones. You can get 100% exemption. But they don't tell anybody. So a lot of the folks who are very poor are in tax foreclosure for 3 years worth of back taxes, and the first time they find out that they could have gotten all of those taxes waived is when they come in to talk to a counselor in foreclosure.
Which taxes can be waived under that program?
The current year's taxes can be waived under the poverty tax exemption program.
Property tax?
Current property tax.
Property tax under a poverty tax
Exemption.
program.
A statewide law that provides that every community has to have a program. It does not mandate that it be 100% exemption. Detroit, to its credit on this one, has decided that it will be 100% exemption if you're very low income. So assessment changes, making that an issue locally, pushing for, if you will, a moratorium on foreclosures until those assessments are done, looking at notifying folks of the poverty tax exemption and more fully utilizing that, changing, not putting water bills on taxes. It's not even effective in the city.
That's right.
It's not effective in the city. They put water bills on, they take it to auction, some investor buys it for $500 to $1,000, and the city loses all the money. It's just crazy in every which way. And several people have noted the land bank. There are a lot of things that can be done there. I'll wrap up real quick. Land bank has 70,000 properties. A lot of those are occupied. There's no reason why they have the absolute authority. They can peddle those for next to nothing, $500 each, what have you. A couple of suggestions at the state level. The Step Forward program in Michigan. Michigan got nearly $500 million to help poor folks and others to save their homes. One of the top reasons why you can't get Step Forward and Michigan help is that you're too poor. That's the reason they give it. You're too poor. You don't have the money to pay the taxes on the overassessed home going forward, therefore, you don't get help. So pushing the state more on that, instead of using the money for demolition, using it for paying bills, and there's some state legislation to cut back on the 18% interest. Those things will be a major help. And Marilyn's going to talk about mortgage.
Actually, Maureen, as quickly as possible, so we have an opportunity for other folks to ask questions and our rapporteurs. Quickly, go.
Okay. So this is Vanessa Fluker, who also does the mortgage foreclosure problem is enormous in this region. At one point, one of the reasons we were awarded hardest hit money by the federal government is that we were the top area in the nation for mortgage foreclosures. And that was only a couple of years ago. When you add the tax foreclosures to it, where we are 25 times ahead of anywhere else in the country, we are #1 in terms of foreclosures, period. And this is an issue in this area, which Vanessa will talk about, of black land laws. For many low-income families, black families, this is their only wealth. And it is being systematically removed from them. The ACLU filed a lawsuit a couple of years ago. They filed on behalf of our office and on behalf of a number of a class of black family homeowners in Detroit who were losing their homes as a result of what were initially New Century mortgages. Those mortgages were peddled at the instruction of Morgan Stanley and Wall Street. The suit is against Morgan Stanley and Wall Street because they were asked to peddle mortgages in Detroit to target Detroiters that had at least 4 or 5 predatory features that would guarantee that those mortgages would fail and would wind up in foreclosure. We have an enormous problem here with blight as a result of foreclosure. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, and again, Vanessa can talk about this, but Fannie Mae, and some of you are here from Chicago, and you had an opportunity to meet with Mel Watt a couple of weeks ago. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are continuing to drive this process and not making homes available as families are forced out of their homes to those families to stay in the homes with principal reductions or buybacks for value. Property values in Detroit have dropped 90% on average as a result of this foreclosure crisis. And I'll allow.
Thank you. My name is Vanessa Fluker. I'm a local attorney. Local attorney here in Detroit, and I fight against foreclosures. And the first thing I think is very important is that we need to understand the real life effect of the whole foreclosure crisis and the lack of assistance to borrowers. People many times look at the numbers, but they don't look at the individuals. Contrary to the media hype, you aren't dealing with a bunch of people who quote-unquote bit off more than they could chew. The majority of my practice, the majority of people that are engaged in that fight in the city of Detroit are poor working people, minorities, and disabled people. And that constitutes the majority of my practice. Just by way of putting a picture to this, for instance, my client who's a senior citizen. She's being treated for cancer, she has renal disease, she gets dialysis 3 times a week, she's trying to work out a modification. Nation Star, who's the servicer, sends her a letter. In big bold print it said, "We will not foreclose on your mortgage while you're being reviewed." 2 weeks later, they sold her house at the sheriff's sale. She's steadily sending them documents. We're on appeal on that case right now because the court said, guess what? The banks don't have to stop the foreclosure because there was never any contract. This is happening over and over and over again. My clients who are hard-working people in the city of Detroit, they're in foreclosure because their escrow and their taxes went up. Well, the area they were in actually got an enterprise zone tax abatement. Now, I may be a little naive, but the best of my knowledge, definition of abatement means less taxes. Well, guess what? The court said, well, the borrowers didn't tell them about the abatement, and too bad, despite the fact they made almost 10 payments on a forbearance for them to investigate this. It's over and over and over again. People are sending documentations in over and over for modifications. They're systematically being told they're lost, etc., etc., and we all know the story behind that. You can all go online, put in Bank of America, false affidavits, all that stuff. You will actually see employees who blew the whistle saying, hey, we were told to shred that stuff when it comes in. This is being, it's just outrageous. And the reason it makes it so outrageous in the city of Detroit is because, as Marilyn indicated, our property values are down approximately 90%. That means that the fear, I can talk about my area. I live in Detroit. Okay. House on my street sells for $5,000. The mortgage on that house is $100,000. The bank gets the $100,000 through Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, who's insuring the loans. The borrower gets thrown out, and then you have another blighted property on the street. Of course, now you have all kind of quality of life issues. Crime, you know, because of the vacant house. You have the blight, etc., etc. Blight is not the problem. Foreclosures are the problem. For years with Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, and no one has stepped up to the plate to verify that they will do something to affirmatively assist these homeowners. I am not going to continue on, but I do have a written statement for the rapporteurs, and I have a disc with the supporting quantitative data to support it.
And we're supposed to make 6 copies of that, but yes. So we got good work in this case. UAW, Flint, Michigan, and then we'll take
Greeting everyone from the occupied city of Flint, Michigan. I'm just going to briefly go through this situation because I want to share what's happening in Flint, Michigan.
Can you give us your name?
I'm sorry, Claire McClinton, C-L-A-I-R-E, McClinton, M.C. Clinton.
Not related.
Not related to those other Okay. I'm just going to briefly go through a statement I wrote up real quick, and then if somebody's got questions. The conditions in Flint, Michigan are inhumane. Come on.
Yes.
Between 2000 and 2009, Michigan lost 783,000 jobs. In other words, during that period, 24% of all private sector jobs lost during this period was in Michigan. 1 in 5 in Michigan. Some called it a slow-moving Katrina that hit the state and no one noticed. Flint, home to giant automaker General Motors, was no exception. At the time, child poverty was twice the national average, nearly 50%. In 1974, 1 in 10 jobs was in auto in Flint. Today, nearly 1 in 50 jobs are in auto. We have not recovered, and if Flint was a weather report, we would characterize ourselves as an economic and political tsunami. As the technology revolution, along with outsourcing of jobs, has swept the auto industry, our problem is that we no longer build cars and trucks. They used to say when better cars are built, Buick will build them. We now say when better cars are built, robots will build them. But instead of reorganizing our community's needs in the face of these new realities, our state government chose to attack the growing impoverished masses. The state of Michigan not only cut public assistance, but imposed an unprecedented law, the Emergency Manager Law, stripping us of our precious public assets, our collective bargaining rights, and democracy itself as we've known it, sending unelected managers. And let's be clear, there is no daylight between emergency managers and the water crisis that we confronted with here today.
That's right.
No daylight. We cannot review this without understanding these processes. Okay. Instead of sending the $55 million of revenue sharing that the state owes us, they kept it and declared us a financial disaster area. Quality water and the lack of access to it is right now the most devastating expression of our plight. I'm going to just briefly go through 3 categories of this water crisis. First category is water denied. Second category, water quality. And third category, prosecution. Water denied. Renters in Flint must pay $450 to get water turned on. Somebody didn't hear that. Renters in Flint must pay $450 to get water turned on. That's before you get any water. All water customers pay $60 per month service fee. That's before the water. That does not include the water itself. So if you leave home for 30 days and don't turn on the tap, you're going to get a $60 water bill. Flint residents, the poorest in the county, pay $30 more than the next expensive area and $90 more than the least expensive area in our county, and we're the poorest. Shady Acres, a mobile home park, has 9 families who have been without water for almost 2 years. These families access water from a water pump at a neighboring cemetery. Come on with it. The emergency manager turned off water at an apartment complex where tenants' water is included in their rent. bill, the building was condemned, and the residents were evicted, put out on the street after they paid their rent, because they wouldn't go after the corporate landlord. Mission of Hope, a daytime homeless drop-in center, found themselves unable to pay their water bill, and their water was turned off. The emergency manager refused to make payment arrangements with them. This center now serves as an emergency water site, distributing bottled water to those in need. Finally, under water denied, these are just little snippet examples. Water shutoffs are skyrocketing due to consistently raising water rates in Flint under emergency management.
Right.
Dictator law. Thank you. Water quality. Water quality. In their zeal to enter into a new pipeline agreement with bondholders, under the emergency manager, Flint uses Flint River water while the new pipeline is being built. Residents have complained about skin rashes, foul odors, and discolored water. There have been 3 boil water advisories since this summer in Flint, Michigan. No drinking, no bathing, no brushing your teeth with this contaminated water. Water must be boiled. Taking it to another level, this week, General Motors engine plant stunned the public by declaring it would no longer use City of Flint water because the chlorine levels were too high, causing axle parts to prematurely rust.
Quickly, hurry up. Squeak.
I wish I was lying to y'all.
Squeak.
GM, with the permission of the emergency managers, is installing a new pipe connected to a neighboring township. But we supposed to continue to drink this water. But it's rusting out axle parts. The last, and then I'm closing. Prosecution. Emergency manager hired a special prosecutor to go after those whose waters was turned on illegally. Quote, illegally. The witch hunt was aggressive in finding those who were, quote, stealing water. No plan has been put forth to make water either affordable or safe. Advocates for the people who have challenged these powers, this is another part of prosecution. Advocates for the people who have challenged these powers are demonized, isolated, and even criminalized. Councilman Eric Mays has, for all practical purposes, been censored and confined to a tether regarding misdemeanor charges. Reverend Edward Pinckney of Benton Harbor, Michigan, is facing felony charges for voter fraud for daring to fight for the right to exercise voters' rights on behalf of citizens.